News Radio. Thank you, Jeff, for that story. Again, at ifiber1newsradio.com. Morning, Spencer.
Good morning.
Got two great guests in from Fish and Wildlife here, Matt Blankenship and Sergeant Chris Zuchlewski here. Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We're talking a little bit about nuisance calls when it comes to wild animals, as we share a lot of space with our four-legged friends out there in the forest. Sergeant, let's start with you. Let's talk a little bit about the areas that you monitor in Mason and Thurston counties, primarily, but then also on the waterways and all sorts of things.
Yeah, so we're my detachment is responsible for Thurston and Mason counties. So that includes, again, all the forest land, Tahuya, Capital State Forest, but then all the waterways. So we cover the Hood Canal, we also cover the Puget Sound up through the Narrows Bridge south, all the lakes, all the streams, all the rivers in that geographical area.
That's a large area. How many folks are in your detachment?
We have currently 5 officers and then myself as sergeant.
How do you prioritize some of the calls that come in? I would imagine that at times the phone is ringing to get you to show up to different areas. Are there certain metrics or certain things that you look at that you go, this is priority 1, priority 2, or anything like that?
We do. We have basically a priority matrix that we have. Unfortunately, I don't have it in front of me, but I can tell you basically your large poaching calls and your extreme public safety calls are going to be kind of that top of the matrix. So if we're talking like a depredation call, because that's kind of what we're discussing here, if you have like a cougar that has killed a goat, lamb, sheep, on a call like that, that's going to take a priority because it's actually a public safety issue.
Okay. Matt, tell us a little bit about you even have an even wider area that you
Yeah,
have to
so
focus on.
I don't get to cover the waterways like the detachment does, but I mostly do wildlife conflicts. So I deal with human-wildlife interactions, and I cover basically the entire eastern side of the peninsula, including Pierce County, Thurston County, and then some in northern Lewis County. So I mostly deal with those human-wildlife interactions, work closely with our enforcement officers as well.
So that would be if folks are out in the mountains and they come across the goats, like on Mount Eleanor. Those, we've heard those stories over the years, kind of those types of things.
Yeah, that would be more so the National Park Service a lot of the times. But yeah, we do work with those a little bit. But yeah, mostly I'm dealing with private property owners that are dealing with agricultural damage from elk or deer. We're dealing with bears getting into garbage cans. We're dealing with livestock depredations by some of our larger carnivores, things of that nature.
We heard a story on the Hood Canal a couple weeks ago about a cougar and a dog. Somebody was out on the beach with their dog, and it was a cougar attacked the dog. Is that a normal occurrence? Are you seeing that these types of interactions are happening more and more frequent? And what are some of the ways that folks can protect themselves, be, I don't know, I guess larger than life, to make them have the animals fear them a little bit more? Or?
Yeah, I don't know if you want to touch on that one a little bit.
Yeah, I mean,
especially the Hood Canal incident.
Yeah, so the Hood Canal incident, that was a situation where we had an extremely emaciated, very, very old cougar, that ended up attacking this dog, and it was, as you mentioned, the beach, but it wasn't actually on the beach. It was at Mike's Beach Resort, and this cougar ended up basically attacking a dog as the owner and the dog got out of the vehicle, started walking towards the beach, and the cougar just seemed focused on the food source.
Sure.
Do
you know if it was off leash or on leash?
The dog was on leash at the time.
Wow.
Yeah,
So
it
it
was
came
on
right up
leash.
to the guy too.
Yeah. So it came close. In fact, it knocked the individual over, but didn't attack him. I think it was just so focused on getting to the dog. As you know, when dogs are on a leash, they're kind of, they're to your side or whatever the case is, and it knocked the individual over and grabbed the dog.
So an emaciated cougar, that is, how would an animal like that get to that level? And are there signs? Are there warning signs, sounds that somebody could be on the lookout for?
It's difficult to say. Warning signs of emaciated cat. A lot of times with old age, that will happen. A lot of times they get a lot of teeth wear. The teeth start breaking down a little bit, so they're just not as effective as harvesting some of the deer that are in our ecosystem.
Sure.
And so they're looking for anything else that they can get their hands on. And it's an anomaly. It's a very rare occurrence that these things ever happen.
Yeah.
But that's not to say they don't. Like we just had that incident up in Hood Canal. They can happen. But as far as warning signs of it, a lot of times you may see some of these animals in more I guess, residential or areas. You probably wouldn't see them down there too much, but that's probably a warning sign what I would see. But from there.
Sure. And I know Spencer lives in a big forested area,
Yeah.
5 acres, and these animals roam freely
Oh, yeah.
throughout the forests around our area.
One of the most terrifying sounds is a female mountain lion caterwauling, I guess. We didn't know what that was until we Googled it, and we're like, it sounds like animal sounds like a woman screaming in the middle of the night, and that is blood-curdling. And we had one late summer, fall. It sounded like it was right outside our window. And here's a question for you that I've been meaning to ask both of you. We moved from Northern California where there's a lot of mountain lions, and even here we have a neighbor who's lived in the area 60 plus years, and we always heard the stories of, I've lived here my whole life, I've been in these woods, I'm a hunter, I'm out there fishing, everything, never seen a mountain lion, never seen a cougar, and now almost everybody we talk to has had some sighting in the last few years. What's going on with that? I've talked to some hunters and they say they're overpopulated, we're not allowed to hunt them in the same way as we could 10, 15 years ago. Where's the truth in this? Is it that they're more prevalent, the population's going up, or are we just seeing more of them? And why are seemingly so many people seeing them more when you could go a lifetime in the woods and never see one?
It's a rare occurrence to actually see a cougar. I wouldn't say they're overpopulated. Cougars actually regulate their populations. They're density-dependent predators, which means that their population is based on the amount of prey and the amount of space that is available to them. What we tend to see is that it's kind of a misconception, but oftentimes when you maybe over-harvest predators, you oftentimes might see some of these subadults moving into areas trying to maintain a home range. So you may see more animals in a certain area after a certain time. But a lot of times you'll see some of these subadult animals that are trying to find their own home range, kind of moving around the landscape, kind of finding themselves in maybe different locations where they necessarily shouldn't be, or, say like a residential area where they're moving through trying to find a location to be. The sightings have gone up, but that could be also due to a lot of different things. I mean, we have social media now. We have everybody. A lot of folks have, game cameras out in the woods or at their house. There's security cameras, and so a lot of these things pass through these different technology pathways. And so we're starting to see that more people are getting these sightings where maybe cougars have been before. They're just now starting to see them because of this technology that is available.
You bring up social media, and you see these posts online. Oh, I saw this, I saw that. That does not necessarily help you guys mark where these sightings occur if it's on some community page on Facebook versus you call Fish and Wildlife and say, this is what happened here. Is that right?
Absolutely. And even to touch a little bit more on the previous question, is Matt indicated, there's so many different avenues. People have game cameras, security systems. A lot of these are coming through, nighttime corridors where they probably always have. As far as he discussed population of cougars, I mean, is there potentially a few more? There could be. As far as what our data suggests is that, again, the cougars their population self-regulate based on a carrying capacity. There can only be so many. But do their populations fluctuate? Absolutely, based on time of year at different years as far as food sources and such. And you guys asked the question regarding an emaciated older cat. That happens occasionally, just like, as far as signs, it's tough to say. It's just kind of like an older person. As we get older, generally people lose weight, they start to get frail. And so for a cougar, their food source, now they're looking for an easier prey. They can't catch those deer.
Yeah.
The other issue is, as far as sightings, again, people are more aware of it. But your problem cats seem to be the old cats, but more so the young males. So those subadult males are the ones that are moving around, looking for new space because
trying to find their place.
Yeah, because an adult male will not let them live in their home range, right?
Sure.
Because they're competition for females. So, it's much more instinctual on cougars than people. I mean, we all fight over females, I guess, but the cougars are gonna protect the females in their home range and protect their territory. So they will typically kill a subadult male that comes into their home range if they find it. So those subadult males are going to travel more and become more of a problem, I guess, as far as coming into residential areas, coming into some of those small farms, 5-acre lots. Sure. That's where you're going to see most of the problem cats.
What about bear? Our neighbors are they kind of make fun of us a little bit. Some of them have talked to me about it, that they're surprised we haven't seen one yet. But how prevalent are they, let's say in Mason County, like between here and Allen or Grapeview?
There's a whole lot of black bears.
Yeah, I would say we have
there
a
are,
fairly healthy population of black bears,
Wow.
and this time of the year too, you'd probably be more likely to see a black
that
bear.
right? Yeah.
Just because as they come out of their hibernation, they're just looking for any type of calorie source that they can
Yeah.
get, a lot of carbohydrates, and so that oftentimes tends to be our attractants that we have on the landscape, including our bird feeders, fruit trees, garbage cans. That a majority of our calls come this early spring are mostly about black bears getting into those attractants, and so it's about educating the public a little bit about securing those, maintaining those, taking them down if there's a bear moving through the area. Period of 7 to 10 days, if you take your bird feeders down, that bear's going to move on because it is looking for anything that it can, and they're constantly roaming, just looking for that food
So if
source.
the garbage cans haven't been turned over, that's a good sign.
That is a good sign.
Good sign, real
would
good
say.
sign.
So you
And that's a huge issue is the problem bears and people putting out attractants, and it's mostly unknowingly so. Again, your bird feeders, but we have had a lot of bear sightings in Thurston County
Yes.
over the last month, and in almost every one of these, there are bird feeders involved. One of these that we set on Delphi Road here a little bit ago, they brought up the surveillance system. There was 3 cubs, which is a little bit unusual because it's usually 2, but there can be 3, with the mom. Okay, so with the sow, and she went around, and I'm looking at those 3 cubs that weren't little anymore. They were 120-pound maybe bears, 100-pound bears, but they were all converging on this one area. And I asked the the homeowner, I'm like, what do they have right there? And she's like, they got my bird feeder. So they were just all in that for several minutes, eating all that seed.
So you mentioned the bear and some cougar sightings. What are some of the other animals that are out there that you may come across? Are there wolves in our area? Is that something that roams around Mason and Thurston County?
Currently, now there's no wolves in Mason and Thurston
Okay.
County.
No wild wolves.
Yeah, wild wolves. So there are wolves in the northeastern portion of our
Yeah,
state.
yeah.
Our recovery efforts are the wolves are expanding in their range as of right now. But the first documented pack that we have in Western Washington is up in the Skagit. So that's the first one documented in Western Washington. I will say probably be some time before they make it Mason and Thurston County.
What are some ways that a family comes across an animal like this? What are some of the ways that they can try to, that you would recommend to try to scurry them off, shoo them off, without getting too close, things like that? Loud noises, alarms, anything like that?
Yeah, loud noises are great. They work really well, especially with a lot of these animals that are on the landscape. It's just being educated and knowing that when you're out recreating in the woods, that that you're out there, you're sharing that landscape with a lot of these animals. So making your presence known is key. A lot of the times when incidents occur is because we're startling an animal, maybe on a trail or some other case like that. So if you make your presence known, that could be just talking to a friend. That could be having a bell on your hip or something, making some noise. So you're not startling them, letting them know that you're there is a big thing. And if you do have an encounter, make yourself big, make yourself loud, just to scurry off that animal. They don't want anything to do with us.
We've been using air horns, and it seems to work. We got coyotes that are as big as the dogs coming right up to the fence line,
Right.
and we put that air horn, and we don't hear them anymore for the night.
Yeah. Coyotes are, they're kind of a different ball game. They're very adaptive animals. I mean, they lived and adapted to live in some of our really urban environments, like Tacoma, for example.
Sure.
They're very adaptive animals, and so it's not uncommon to see them around homes.
That's very common. The coyotes they're really everywhere, and they populate so quickly. It's one of those animals that and food sources. Again, everything. They're eating mice to rabbits to cats to small dogs. So they're gonna prey on anything, and they have adapted to an urban setting, so they're gonna come up to people's yards. As far as one additional thing regarding again your large predatory animals, your cats, your bears, as Matt indicated, make noise, make yourself look big. But again, they're predatory animals, so they don't act like prey. You don't want to run. You want to back away
right.
from the animal. You want to find a safe place to go, but you don't just turn around and run.
What about, you hear about making eye contact or locking eyes. Does that really do anything?
It doesn't necessarily. So if you're just staring at the animal, it's probably not going to do anything. But it's always a good idea to keep your eyes on it. Don't ever turn your back to it.
Sure.
So always keep your eyes on it and back away from it. Give it a place to run away. Don't try to corner it. So if you can, just back away slowly from the animal.
If I'm making eye contact, I'm way too close. I want to get away from it.
Fish and Wildlife is online at wdfw.wa.gov. And if someone comes across an animal like this, is that a reporting site there? Is there a place to report these? Just so maybe not for you guys to come out and drop everything and come out, but at least so there's a note that this was seen in this area.
Right. Yeah. So there is a tool online that you can report some of these sightings of these larger carnivores, say like cougars. You can report sightings online using our mapping tool, or you can call in a sighting. And you can call in that number, and if you don't mind, I'd like to
Please.
give that number. It's 877-933-9847. And that's kind of a statewide number, but you can call in and report a sighting to us. And then a lot of times those emails are sent to our dispatch, and then they're blasted out to everybody. And typically we will follow up fairly quickly.
It's a large area you guys have to cover with a lot of different animals out there. We thank you for taking some time with us here this morning.
Thanks, Matt.
As we learn a little bit more about this, as we have Matt Blankenship and Sergeant Chris Zuchlewski here today from Fish and Wildlife. Thank you, guys.
No, thank you guys.
Thank you very
Appreciate it.
much.